Hi, I'm Wanda with Jimmy Branch Homestead, and today I'm making chicken stock. So I have 2 roasters going, and this is a large one that my mother-in-law gave to me. I love her so much and thank her for it. And inside I have several chicken carcasses. These are from chickens that I parted out, and then I keep the wings on. Well, no, I do take the wings off usually. So these have some meat on them that once it's done, I will clean it up and use for sandwiches. But I put 1 onion in here, about 1 pound of carrots, and 4 to 6 stalks of celery. So because this one's pretty big, or both of these are pretty big that I'm using, I like to use 6 stalks of celery. So the second roaster, and this one is a Hamilton Beach. I don't know the exact size of it. I know it's a big one. And this one is a Nesco 18 quart. Same thing. This one has 5 chicken carcasses in it and some chicken feet. Again, about 1 pound of carrots, 6 stalks of celery, and 1 onion. And these will cook at 325 overnight. Okay, it is the next day, and I am fishing out all of the fat skins and the carrots and the celery and the onion pieces. And then the meat I am putting separate because I'm going to can the chicken separate. And then the bones. And so I just kind of pull it up like this, and there's like a bunch of fat on here. And then I'll kind of smash the juice out of the stuff here. But I'm not that far yet. I may fish the carrots out and give them to my dogs. Oops. So this is a little bit of a time-consuming process, but that's it. And there's lots of meat on here because when I parted out my chickens, I purposely left the 2 back pieces on the carcasses to give it more meat for this, so that I can get, when it's cooked, it just falls off the bone and I get every little bit of chicken. We don't like eating the backs just as, fried chicken or baked chicken. So I do save it for this. Okay, there's a big bone. And at this point, a lot of the bones are just falling apart. Because it's been cooking for not quite 24 hours. And I left it on and cooked it through the night. And be sure and check them, because I had to add water to it last night, once in the middle of the night. And this one seems to cook hotter, even though it was at 325. Than the other one did. But I had to add water to both of them. And then earlier this morning, I added water to both. But at this point, I don't want to add any more water. I want all that yummy flavor. And there's going to be lots of flavor in this chicken stock. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and keep cleaning this up, separating off the meat and the bones and the other stuff, and then I will be back. Okay, I have finished spooning out all the big stuff now. The carrots, the onions, the celery, the bay leaves. And I forgot to tell you earlier on in the video, I do put a couple bay leaves for flavoring in with the chickens to cook it in the stock, and then I pull them out first. So I ended up with almost 2 quarts of chicken, not quite. I noticed a lot of wings and necks that I threw in with those packages. So I think that was off of like 6 carcasses. So it would have been meat off the backs mainly, the necks and wings. So that was quite a bit of meat off of that. This is most of the bones in this bowl here. There are a few here that wouldn't fit because they kept falling off. I'm going to dig out the carrots out of the bowl for my dogs because they will love that. Carrots are good for them and they love that chicken broth on it. So for now, I'm going to let this cool a little bit so I can get that top layer of grease off, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so I have finished boning out the chickens in the second roaster. So I'm down to juice, and there's a little bit of fat, you know, the little small stuff. And I'll show you how we're going to handle that in a minute. But I didn't get quite as much, that looks like skin, meat, almost, but not quite as much meat off of this one as the other one. And still a healthy stack of bones. And this includes the carrots from the other one. So there was a couple hearts in here. I decided to go ahead and keep those. I'm going to dice them up for the dogs. We like hearts, but I'm going to go ahead and, there was only 2. So dice them up and cut up the carrots and mix it with their dog food. So nice treat for the dogs. They'll love it. So let me kind of clean up this. Okay, so the next step in the process is we're going to filter to get all the little bits and that kind of thing out. So to do this, I basically buy like a thin, it's a tea towel, and they're really cheap. I think it's $5 for a dozen or $7 for a dozen. I don't remember exactly, but they are cheap to get, and it works to me better than cheesecloth. And of course they hold up better than cheesecloth. And I get these from Walmart in the housewares. So I'm just gonna have that doubled and to put it down in my colander here. And now a lot of this grease is cooling off and coming to the top. And I'm just gonna keep on doing this until I get all done. And it just takes out a lot of the stuff. I usually do this twice. I'll filter it all through once, then I'll get another clean towel and filter it all through again. So let me go ahead and continue on this process, and then I'll bring you back and show you the next steps. Okay, so I have all the broth strained and put into 2 separate stock pots. And I just kind of wanted to show you. So the first time that I strain it, you know, you get a lot of stuff out of it. So there's one section of it, and here's one section of it. And that was from one stock pot. I washed it out in between the first and second stock pot, roaster. But because I was using these towels and not the other type, not the cheesecloth, there's hardly anything. So I really don't think it would be necessary to strain it the second time. And this is with both roasters strained through here and not washed out. So there's really only a couple little sediments, particles in there, not much. So next time using these towels, I won't even bother to put it through a second time. The first time gets it really good. So now I've ended up with 2 pretty full stock pots full of broth. Before I continue on, I need to kind of clean up some of this and make room. Okay, so now my broth is cooling off. It's still warm, but this is a grease separator, and I just love it. When you push the button, it releases the liquids out the bottom, and the grease goes to the top. So you can stop before it gets to the grease or right at the grease line. And so it's great for filling my jars and separating the grease. So let's see if I can keep from getting this all over the counter. You can filter it again, but I've already filtered it twice and I feel pretty confident. So you're always going to end up with a little bit of sediment in the bottom of your jars. There's nothing you can do about that. But these towels that I have, by far, it's the best. Oops. And the grease was at the top, but when I dipped the ladle in, it kind of mixed it up again. Okay, now I just let it sit, and the grease is starting to rise. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a skinny, like 1/16 of an inch on top of it. So we'll just let it sit for a minute or two, and then I'll be back. Okay, well, it's staying about the same. It's about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. And then the nice thing about this then, I just put it on my jar and I squeeze and it comes out the bottom, so the fat stays on the top. My husband found this and got it for me, so he thinks of me. It makes my job easier. And I'm going to fill it right to the top of the shoulder here. That's good. To give it a good inch of head space. Okay. The other thing that's nice about, I'm not ladling it in, so I'm not slopping it all over the rims either. But we'll still wipe it. And I am using the jars, and the canning lids are superb from Azure Standard. They are tinted a little bit, but they're 30% thicker than their competitions. So I'm loving that. Feel much better about using them for pressure canning. And just spin it, and then a little more. And today I'm using my new birthday present my husband got for me. I've been wanting one and couldn't really afford it, and he said, nope, we need to get it. So, very excited about that. I often can and have like a canner and a half load. So this would solve that problem. That I don't have to run another whole second canner. You know, for 11 jars. It'll all fit in one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish filling this up, fill in the jars, and then I'll be back. Okay, I have all my jars filled up for the canner. My canner does hold 2 rows of 7 quarts, but I did put in 7 quarts and 8 pints for the second row. I like the big quarts if I'm making soups, but if I'm making other things or cooking with it, then I like the pints. So I've kind of got a mixture of pints and quarts. So here's the top layer. The bottom layer's down here. That's why I like this canner. That's the whole reason I wanted to buy it. So when I have big canning projects, I can fit a lot more in the canner and make less trips or less times I have to can. Okay, so the top goes on. Let's see if I can find the little diamond. Oh, here it is. It's indented right here. So I need to, oh, I forgot. This is a brand new canner, and it's metal to metal. They do not use like a silicone seal. It just makes a metal to metal seal. And so what they recommend is that you use Vaseline on it and just replace the Vaseline every few times that you can. And that also, at some point, I'll probably need to lubricate these little screws too with Vaseline. But I'm going to just start out with the rim for today. So, I have a brand new thing of Vaseline that I'll keep just for this. Doesn't need a lot, just enough to get a little bit on it. Need a little bit more. Have a little spot where it feels dry. There we go. Wipe my hands off. Okay, now we put the lid on. Matching up the little arrows. I have an arrow here on my lid and an arrow on the pot. And to fasten this down, we go opposite sides. And we don't want to crank the whole thing down yet. Oops. Just start. And then again, opposite sides. Oops, that one's a little, there we go. One's really loose and one's tight. Okay, and again, opposite sides. Okay. And then I go back to the originals and crank those down. And then the next ones. And then the next ones. Okay, so I got all of the little handles cranked down evenly. Now I'm going to turn the burner on medium-high. I know a lot of people started at high, but I have gas heat, and so I prefer to do it at medium-high so that the pressure doesn't get too high once it starts. It's easier for me to regulate. So once it heats up and steam's coming out the vent, I'll bring it back. Okay, the vent here have a lot of steam coming up out of it. So at this point, I'm going to turn the timer on for 10 minutes. Okay, so my weight has a 5, 10, and 15 pounds on it, but for my area, we're going to process at 10 pounds pressure. So I just put the number 10 down right here. Okay, so now we need to wait till the pressure builds up. It'll show up here on the gauge. But this is what will regulate it. That's called the regulator or the weight. Okay, the weight is jiggling steady now, and the pressure is up about 11 pounds. So that's normal. So at this point, I need to set the timer for 90 minutes. Now, once it's through processing and cools completely down, then I will show you the finished product. Okay, so it is the next day. I let the canner cool down completely. I just let it stay overnight. It cools that much better. So, took the weight off. And now I need to, let's see, that was tight. Loosen, just like we tightened, alternating size. I hope I can fit all these jars here. They are actually still just barely warm. So I have to unload the pints first since they're on top here. Okay, so we got 8 pints. Canner holds the heat. Okay, so now we'll take out the quarts. And we do have really hard water, so it looks like the bottom ones are going to need to be cleaned up. I forgot to put vinegar in the canner. If you throw a splash of vinegar in there, it really helps that a lot. My canner came with 2 trays, but they're really lightweight, so I used the one for the bottom. This is a separate one that I bought from Amazon, and it's nice and heavier built, so I like to use it in between the stackings. I'll put a link to my Amazon store in the description below, and we are Amazon associates, so we receive a very small percentage back on anything you buy through our links. It has no additional cost to you, but it would be a great way to help our homestead in a small way. Okay, so we had 7 quarts on the bottom. And yes, some of them, they do have just a little bit of fat in them, but that's okay. That helps to give it the flavor too. So I was pretty much out of broth, so I am so excited. And all of this canner, except for 2 pints, came off that first roasting pan. Okay, so I have the jars all cleaned up and labeled, ready for the shelf. I did want to mention my All-American canner. The reason that I love this so much is because I can put 2 or 3 layers depending on the size of jars. This canner will hold 14 quart jars, 7 on each layer, so 2 layers, and it will also hold 19 pint jars, or it will hold even more half pint jars. So it's great to be able to layer. This would have taken me 2 canners in my old canner loads, so it's nice that I can do so much at one time. If you're interested in the All-American canner, this is a 30 quart that I have. There is one even larger, but I just felt like it might be too much for me to maneuver. It is a heavy canner. It weighs 30 pounds, give or take. But in my opinion, it's very well worth it in the amount of processing that I can do at a time. Now, if you never do big loads, then you might not need this canner. But it is a very high quality canner. It will last you a lifetime if you take care of it. So I will leave a link to this canner and this divider that I bought. It comes with 2 of the lighter weight dividers. It is important to use these in the bottom because it's higher and it keeps the jars a little bit higher off the bottom. But for in between the layers of jars, I'm really liking this one. It is thinner. Oh, it's actually 2. They just came apart. So that's even better. So I have room for the 2 stacks. So if you're enjoying this type of video, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. It will help to really grow our channel. Thanks so much for watching Jimmy Branch Homestead.